Hello and welcome to SuperOK, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. As always, my name is Dale, and I am joined here by our lovely co-host, Mel. Mel, how are you?
Hi, I am doing well. I hope that you are doing well as well.
Extra medium over here. I'm extra medium today. 2 days ago, I had to cancel my stream because I fell asleep at 5, and then I woke up at 7:30 and was like, I can't stream. And then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up at 11:30, and then I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I stayed up for a full 24 hours.
Dang.
And then went to sleep. And so this is me the day after that.
Oh, so you're like extra refreshed now.
I am like hyper rested. It's great.
Love it.
So we are also joined here today by Jamie. Jamie, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Jamie is a longtime friend of SuperOK. He's a member of the A Little Dicey podcast and has a level of expertise around today's topic that we will get into later on. But I am just, Jamie, I cannot exclaim how stoked I am to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those of you who are new to the pod, every week we do a highlight of the week, and it's just a thing that makes your day a little bit brighter or a little bit nicer or a little bit whatever. And we always let our guests go first. So, Jamie, what is your highlight of the week?
I've kind of hit my, so I'm a freelance writer, and this week I feel like I've kind of hit my stride a little bit as far as like, it's hard making money writing, you guys. But I feel like this, especially in just the last month, and just kind of like, even in this last week, I've kind of like hit my stride as far as being able to like hit my writing goals. And like, I got a gig for an old client that I'm kind of psyched about. So yeah, things are looking up there.
That's awesome. I am always so enthralled by people who are able to make their art also their job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned like your writing goals, like how do you know at the end of a day that you've been successful?
I mean, it really depends on the client, I guess. But fortunately, the one I'm working with right now is like super flexible. Like as long as I give them something, like I'm good. So that's really the fact that I'm able to just give them something is kind of my metrics for success right now.
Nice, man. That sounds great. Because obviously, like I've got clearly defined goals in my work, and it's like I'm crossing stuff off throughout the day. But at the same time, it's like those are all written in stone and like handed to me by someone else. And so to do something like that from an art perspective it's just always really interesting.
Yeah,
very cool.
For sure.
Can you talk about what you're working on or no?
Yeah, well, So I know that. So we're talking about dating sims today. So a lot of the work I've done has been for mobile games, which so romance is not my genre of choice. Typically, it's not the thing I really like to write most, but it is a thing that as a game writer and as someone does it's the genre that seems to pay the best, or at least it's the easiest to get into because it's kind of like. It's the most profitable genre in general. So it's kind of the easiest to break into.
I did not realize it was the most profitable. That's really cool.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, don't quote me on that exactly, but I know that I'm pretty sure it is. Romance tends to be the easiest to make money from as a fiction writer. So the project I'm working on right now is actually it's called How to Marry a Monster. It's for the platform. It's sort of a beta. I'm doing sort of a beta tester for this platform called Storyloom. It's basically a visual novel sort of engine, kind of geared towards kind of user created content. And the story I'm working on is basically that you're on a Bachelorette style reality show, but the people competing to marry you are all monsters. So there's like a vampire and a werewolf and a Medusa and all the different monsters are trying to marry you. But then it turns out there's little I really like to have, I really enjoy like meta kind of narratives. So you basically kind of find out that this is actually, there's actually more going on than it
Sure.
at first appears.
Than just monsters on a game show.
Exactly.
What an awesome premise. And listeners, boom, now you know why Jamie is uniquely positioned to talk about today's topic, which is amazing. That's I want to get in. I want to get in involved. I want to play it.
Awesome.
Because it sounds like a reverse dating sim, right? So instead of you trying to date somebody, like it's all these other people like trying to date you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's awesome. That's very cool. All right, I'll go next for my highlight of the week because I spent last weekend in Chicago with my sister and the Nibblings, and my oldest nibbling, James, has started to get into Magic the Gathering. And if you know me, you know that I used to play semi-professionally. I would like travel and like win all sorts of product and money and all of that stuff. But I gave it up 10 full years ago. I actually had to look it up to see how long it's been. And then he was like, Uncle Dale, will you come and play in this tournament with me for the pre-release? And I was like, yeah, all right. And it felt like one of those boxing movies where the boxer has to get back in the ring after so long to like, avenge their family or whatever. So I went to this pre-release and
Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, exactly.
Haven't heard that name in a long time.
Just what I thought I was. And I went and played in this pre-release with James and had just an awesome time. It was me and him and one of his friends, and then a whole bunch of dudes who were in between our age ranges. Like he was the youngest and I was probably the oldest. And there's a whole bunch of people who were the age that I was when I was playing. Yeah. And I went undefeated in the tournament. I still got it.
Awesome.
And it was fun. It was just an awesome time. So
awesome.
So that's my highlight.
That's actually very cool. So you won the tournament essentially, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's great.
God. Did you win something? Like what?
It's a pre-release, so the stakes are real low. Basically, every win you get like an extra pack. Okay. And so I got like at the end of it, I got 5 packs because I beat everybody else. Basically, nice. It was not like a really high stakes tournament,
right?
Which is honestly really good because like. You don't want to do that with your nephew because then if you get paired up against him, it's like, oh no,
I'm gonna have to waffle stomp you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I actually ended up playing against his friend, and like I beat him very like handedly. Mm-hmm. And luckily, the stakes are so low that I didn't have to feel bad about it.
Right.
So, it was good. It was good. Mel, what is your highlight of the week?
Man, my highlight of the week is like very interesting and like I'm very excited. My dad wants to create a YouTube page. Like he wants to become a content creator, and I'm just I
saw it, and I'm so stoked. I want to hear everything about it.
So we were like talking the other day, and I recently. My dad ended up buying like a new Tesla, so he got like his Tesla from like Austin factory, and then like my Tesla that I owned is actually from like the California Fremont factory. And we were driving in the car, and he was just like, man, we should do a YouTube video of like, the difference between my car versus your car, because it's the same model, just from 2 different places. And I'm like looking at my dad, and I was like, why would we want to make a YouTube video about that? Like, if I'm going to make a YouTube page, like, I don't want it to be about cars. Like, that's just boring. Like I don't want to, like, that's not my thing. And he's like, okay, well, if you wanted to create like, a YouTube page, what would it be about? And I was like, food. Like, that's no brainer. He's like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, we should start creating like YouTube videos of like, us going to restaurants. And he had like these really grandiose ideas. He's like, we can take a camera and bring lighting in. We can call these restaurants ahead of time so we can get like better service. And I was like, whoa, Dad, like that's a lot of forethought into this. And so this week he was just like, he bought himself like one of those like, I don't know what to call it, but it's like a selfie stick, but like it tracks like your face movement, and it like has a gimbal. Yeah, he bought himself a gimbal for his phone, and now he's like walking around and like testing it out and like trying to see like, oh, how can I make these angles? And we're like looking at his kitchen, and he's like, where should I place this camera so I can like do, I don't know. My dad's crazy.
Amazing.
I'm like very excited for him because I'm just like asking him now, like, what are we going to call your YouTube page? And he's like, I'm going to use ChatGTP to figure it out. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad, that's like, not that original. But I'm really excited. I think that our first video is going to be about him making some noodles this weekend. And when it's released, I'd be more than happy to share it with you guys.
Yeah, man, I'm super stoked. That's amazing. I love how he was like, he had this random idea and now he's like buying hundreds of dollars worth of like video equipment.
Right? My dad, when he gets into a specific hobby, he like gets really, really into it. Like he has to buy like the best stuff in order to produce something of quality. And now he's like, oh, we should buy like this, this software to like edit videos. And I'm like, there's like free ones online. Why don't you use that? And he's been like trying out different like, types of transitions to see like what's good for his page. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's amazing. I love it. And I'll be honest with you, that original video idea of like the differences between the cars from the different factories, if that video doesn't already exist, he should make that, because that's the sort of shit that people will 100% look up when they're researching their cars.
Right. Yeah.
So, man, that's awesome.
Oh, I'm excited for him. He's very excited about it as well. And my dad's also a great cook. So hopefully we'll be able to share some recipes with you guys.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's cool. So you said that he did like a whole bunch of research about like all of the different stuff he needs to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. So did he do the same sort of research when he was courting your mom?
I don't think so. That's a great question.
He didn't like get to know a potential partner by like finding out where they hang out and then being in those places when they get there.
I'm pretty sure my dad was dating some other girl when he was courting my mom.
Geez, there's some scandal there. Nice. Well, I want you to imagine trying to get to know your potential partner by learning where they hang out and then just being in those places when they get there so you can like strike up a conversation with them. And how insane that sounds. That sounds like the most mind-blowing, crazy thing. It sounds like the plot of like a psychological thriller. But instead, it was actually the winning strategy of the first ever dating simulator called Dokiusi, which I looked up, but I'm sure I just butchered, so I apologize, which came out for the PC in Japan in 1992.
Really? 1992? That's the first dating sim?
It was the first dating sim. Yes.
That's surprising.
Obviously, this style of game didn't catch on because it's insane, but it was followed by Tokimeki Memorial by Konami.
That one I've heard of.
It roughly translates to Heartbeat Memorial, which is a more traditional dating sim. You were a high school boy and you would try to raise the love meter of your classmates by dating them and choosing discussion options that they liked. And you had to rely on like your knowledge of the statistics of their likes and dislikes. It was actually really cool because it also had like a whole bunch of different potential people you could date. And if you ignored some of them, they would like gossip about you and it would make the other girls not like you as much. So you had to like evenly spend your time amongst them. It was wild. And it was really popular as well. In fact, the popularity of that and other games like it in Japan led to the creation of a new genre, which was named Renai, which is romance games. Over the years, these dating sims have evolved and they've expanded. They've incorporated more complex storylines. They have improved graphics, diverse characters, but the basic premise of the genre has remained the same: to allow players to experience virtual romantic relationships. Today, dating sims continue to be popular in Japan and have gained a dedicated following around the world. So, in the interest of puns, what is your relationship with dating sims? Do you get it? Relationship?
I like it.
I get it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jamie. You first. No, you're the guest. You should definitely go first.
Well, so I mean, like I said before, this is something I have some. Romance is not usually my genre of choice, but it is something a lot of people have asked me to write. One of my first projects was actually for an app that is a little more inclined toward the erotica angle.
Ooh.
So a lot of my first job was writing heterosexual sex scenes, which I think is very funny. So,
oh my god,
yeah. So, well, and I would say that a lot of what I've done has not really been the term dating sim. Like you said, yeah, it's kind of applies to any sort of game where it is simulating the act of dating. And some people, it depends kind of who you ask as far as what is a dating sim.
Sure.
I mean, most of what I've done has been visual novels that have a strong romance aspect. Some people will say that, to be a true dating sim, there has to be some sort of like stat building mechanic. Like, is your bravery high enough to unlock this scene? Or, in some cases it'll be there's like a daily loop. If you play the Persona games, they have a pretty strong like kind of dating sim kind of aspect to them, where it's kind of up to you what you want to do each day. And one of those things you can do is to go try to go on a date with one of several love interests. So I haven't really worked on anything that complex. Most of what I have done has been pretty straightforward, kind of like often not even a choice of which character you want to date. It's like, here is your one love interest, and it's your job to date them, and you're probably going to do it. Especially if you spend the proper amount of gems to unlock the good ending.
Sure.
Right. But I mean, as of more recently, I'm trying to get into the more complex style of dating sim.
Nice. Now, what about, have you played any outside of the professional side? Like,
yeah, I would say, but I think the ones that interest me most, I don't know if we want to get into this now, but I know that, Dale, I think you were playing Doki Doki Literature Club. Is that right?
I just played through it on stream, and my mind is still inside out from it.
Oh, if you guys could see me right now, I'm like so happy.
I'm doing jazz hands. It's insane.
Well, I love that because I always love games that kind of deconstruct the genre that they're talking about. So I think I think that was fantastic. And there's another one called what is it? I have written down. I think it's You and Me and Her. Which is also kind of in that same sort of, if you like Doki Doki Literature Club, check it out. It's on Steam. It's called You and Me and Her. It's basically it's less horror, but it still has that sort of like break the fourth wall kind of thing that I think is really interesting.
Okay, cool. Very cool. As for me, I have played a decent number of them throughout the years, but mostly the wackier ones, right? I've never really got into like, oh yes, I'm just going to play this and enjoy the dating part of it, right? It's always like they're pigeons or like, that sort of thing. Right?
Sure.
Like there's a comedic hook to most of the ones that I'll play. That said, anytime I play a dating sim, I always enjoy the strong characterizations that they provide, right? Like the characters, especially if you're playing a dating sim where the characters are deep, and so you're like learning things about them, or the characters are changing as your relationship with them changes. That's always something that's really appealing to me. What about you? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Just saying that, it's definitely a genre that really relies on the quality of the writing, because that's all the mechanics is just how well it's written, basically. So,
and that's what kind of like pulls you into like playing these dating sims, because like for me, I love getting to know the characters and all the other characters that are in the game. Like if I find that like this particular like dating sim is like good, I want to know more about like their background, but then like this character's background. I'm kind of on the same boat with Dale, where I've played a lot of dating sims that has more of like a comedic or not like the traditional dating sims, like, archetypes, like the stereotype of dating sims. But I've always been kind of like interested to see like what that's all about. Because I do have friends that like, I literally have them on Steam and they're like playing just dating sims. I'm always asking questions like, how do you like this one? Tell me more about that. And a lot of the ones that like they play nowadays are like, also more lewd compared to what they have been previously. And I'm like just interested to know like how lewd is lewd. Like I kind of want to experience and like understand it,
Yeah.
But
sure.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
So, Jamie, you kind of alluded to this in your answer to the first question, but what do you guys think are some of the core mechanics of dating sims? Which of those mechanics draw you in? What do you dislike about the average dating sim? And what separates them from visual novels? I'll actually go first on this one because I think I have the most rudimentary answer. In that, in my opinion, at least, the difference between a dating sim and a visual novel is often it's just a couple different things, right? Player agency and how it affects the plot. Right. Like in a dating sim, you're going to have a bunch of different choices that you can make. And some of those choices will progress the storyline for this character and maybe cut off the storyline for a different character. Whereas visual novels, oftentimes it's like, here is the person. And, you might go on a date with this other person, but all that did was make the first person mad. And now you've got to win their love back or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so in those games where like, you've got choices, but all of the choices are yes. It's like, yes, sure. Like, boom, you're playing a visual novel, right? Or at least that part of it is a visual novel. That's my thought. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're on the right track. It definitely kind of comes down to, I think that with dating sims, there is a failure state that you don't always necessarily see with visual novels. Visual novels are basically about telling a story. Right. And I think with dating sims, it's more of like simulating the act of dating that may or may not be successful.
I didn't even think about failure state.
Yeah.
Because I've been married for so long, it didn't even cross my mind.
Because in a lot of dating sims, like you could like really pursue like one direction, and then like you could make one mistake, and it just like blows up your whole entire relationship with that person. And I hate that. Like that's the one thing I hate the most is like sometimes they give you, especially like in dating sims, there's like 4 different like options to choose your dialogue, and you pick one, and you think it's the right one. And then they say it completely differently than how you thought they were going to say it. And then I feel like I wasted like 20 minutes of my time.
It's the worst when the answer that you pick is not the answer that they say. I fucking hate that.
Yeah. Like the Commander Shepard, like turns out to be an asshole answer. I know that like that. So this definitely happened to me with when I played Dream Daddy, which was it was like the game realms were involved in it. It was a pretty popular gay dating sim where you're a dad who dates other dads. I tried to romance Craig, who is the like jock dad. He has like twins, I think. Or no, that was the one else. Anyway,
college roommate.
Yeah, it was like the old like best best friend character who's like potential love interest too. Anyway, I screwed up and like I failed one of the mini games or something, and I just got the more like just like let's just say friends ending. It's kind of like and because that's a pretty long game. So I spent all that time, and now it's just like, and there's just the story's over, I guess. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But I want to kind of like go back to when you were talking about like stat building and like the loops of that. Like I feel like that is something that happens in a lot of games where like you have to make a decision on like whether or not you want to go to the gym to like become more buff, to like get a strength stat, or like you want to go out and build like some sort of like charisma stats. And I always think it's like very interesting to see like how that affects and what appeals to different characters.
Yeah. I think that and this is getting to like discourse now, but like there's a certain, I know that with a lot of these games, there's like, it sometimes comes across as like, it's just sort of a like insert coins, receive boyfriend kind of deal where it's just like, if I just work hard enough, then I will obtain the person as a possession that I'm trying to romance. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It can feel a little bit dehumanizing sometimes. Just like, you picked all the right answers to my series of questions, so now we're gonna fuck. Like, which I mean, and how do you even? Obviously, with any kind of like, if you're trying to simulate a real like relationship, there's only so many ways you can do that without if you just have like it's just effectively a choose your own adventure novel. There's ultimately there's going to be like a good answer and a bad answer, and the good one gets you laid. That's just kind of how it works.
It's true. It's true. And none of us have ever been in this position where that's also been true in real life. So we're just going to move right on. So some dating sim mechanics have been co-opted into other games, right? Like relationship building, that sort of thing. What games that have added that part in have you enjoyed? Were there any games that surprised you with those mechanics?
I really enjoy the Persona series. If you've played Persona, especially Persona 3 through 5, they kind of do this thing where basically it's kind of up to you what you want to do each day. That whether that's, building your relationship stats or going into a dungeon and fighting monsters, or going out and spending time with your friends and potential love interests. And I really like that style of game because it really kind of like gives you a lot of, I like having that agency of like, what do you want to do? Like you technically could go through the whole game, just not dating anyone if you wanted to. And I like having that kind of, it's really up to you, like where you want your story to go.
Yeah, that's cool.
I recently played Yakuza 0, and I was thinking about this question, and saying like, in like the sense of like going through like the cabaret, like you essentially play as one of the main characters, and what he's trying to do is like recruit these girls to work at your cabaret club as a hostess. And with some of the hostess, you actually have to like sit down and train them to become a better hostess. So then you're going through like this dating sim type mechanic where like you have to answer questions to them, or like decide on what type of dialogue you want to, I don't know, talk to with this girl, to essentially have them gain levels to become a better hostess so they can get more money. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was like very fun, but like it all kind of came back to I picked the wrong choice and this main character said it wrong and now I look like a dick. So, and then I also thought about like Dragon Age, like in Dragon Age, like sometimes like the way that you respond to other characters in the game, there's that little blurb that says like, this person will remember that. And that actually affects how that person views you in their relationship and whether or not they find you like romantically interesting. So I like that. I like Dragon Age a lot.
Yeah. I think really a lot of the BioWare RPGs have done that where they're like the love interest storyline is like a really pretty big aspect of the game story, and it's something that it's Mass Effect has done it is to varying levels of success.
Right.
But I'm a big fan of BioWare games.
I was going to say my love of Mass Effect cannot be overstated. And I love the relationship stuff that they do, not just with your love interest, but with other team members and that sort of thing, because it helps to highlight the connections that you build with your teammates just from like spending time with them and being in stressful situations and that sort of thing. And it's like I had friends and then I had coworkers, and it was based on the choices that I made and the decisions and the conversations and all of that. And it was just really, really cool the way that they handled all of that. As far as games I was surprised to see this in, I was really surprised that Hades had any sort of romantic like potential inside of it. And it was really well done, and it was awesome the way that they handled it and the relationships that you could build. I thought that was really cool. I was also surprised to see this in Lost Ark, but that's because it was like shoehorned into Lost Ark. And it was like very clunky, and you could like give each character a certain number of gifts each day. And it was like a pay to win dating thing based on like where you were in the game. And it was just like, they completely dropped the ball on it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it was like, if you're gonna put it in the game, at least do it well.
Yeah, flesh it out a little bit.
Like Lost Ark is, for those of you who haven't played it, is basically just like MMO Diablo. It did not need a dating part in it, but it was there. So
explain. So you're spending money to like obtain dates. Is that how the mechanic worked in that?
No, it's like there's a bunch of different potential love interests, and based on how high your relationship is with them, they'll like give you a quest, and then if you do the quest, it raises your love like meter with them, and then you give them gifts and it raises your love meter with them, and then eventually they start giving you gifts based on like how high your love meter is with them, right?
Is there a story with this, or is it just kind of like an extra kind of thing you can do?
It's literally just like pick the character you want to date, and then like give them shit. Right.
Interesting.
And that's what I'm saying. Like they could have done stuff where it's like, you're like, hey, this character cooked you a bad meal. What do you do? And all of the answers lead to the same thing. And instead, it's like it could have actually been like dating sim stuff. It could have been done really well, and they just fucked it all up. Right. So
sad.
Yeah, real bummer. Real bummer. So one hallmark of most dating sims is that they've never really taken themselves too seriously. And this has led to some intensely wacky games. I just want you to pick a few weird ones to talk about.
I know there's one that you alluded to earlier, which is Hot to Full Boyfriend, which I have never actually played, but I've picked up through reputation, and I've seen
it. That shit's wild.
That's the one where you're dating pigeons, right? Like there's different types of pigeons that you can date. There's also other birds you can date, or is it specifically okay?
It's a bunch of birds.
And isn't it like they kind of allude to this like, sort of like a post-apocalyptic kind of scenario where like humans have been replaced by birds or something like that? Is that
and
true?
You're a human.
They're human dating birds. And there's like an actual like I
didn't get that far.
I don't think it's
relationship.
Emotional, yes.
Okay.
I didn't. This is an audio medium. For those of you who aren't aware, Mel was like putting two fingers together. Like there was like an actual. I didn't get that far in it.
Okay.
But emotional, yes.
Do they really make many references to them actually being birds, or is it just kind of a like undercurrent of like it's just kind of a normal story, and then but you're seeing a bird on the screen? Like do they actually like reference bird things in the conversation?
Yes, they reference bird things.
Okay, interesting.
That's a wacky game.
I know there's the well, speaking of, we talked about Dead by Daylight earlier. There's a Dead by Daylight dating sim called Hooked on You, where you're dating the killers from Dead by Daylight. I have not played it. But it looks pretty good.
Jamie, it is fantastic.
I'm curious to try it out.
I got to play it for a little bit because I was doing research for this podcast. I had to play it. I was like, I need to know what this was all about. And it is, they are killers. Like, let me tell you, they are definitely killers. But like, when we talked about like, what really drives me to like, play a dating sim is like the actual like storytelling and like the characters, like because they're killers and they have like a very interesting backstory. Like you want to know more, like you want to date these people because you want to know like, why are they so fucked up? Like, why are they killing people? And they get into it. It's just intense.
Well, and especially because as I have played a lot of Dead by Daylight, and apart from like, there's like the codex entries that like get into their backstories and stuff, but you never really like have a chance to like talk to these characters and just like find out what makes them tick. So that is something I could definitely see being interesting.
You would like it. A lot of it is very like interesting in that aspect, but then like there are some scenes in there where I'm just like, whoa, like I ended up my first playthrough dating the Trapper, and the Trapper is like this big like buff dude, and my friend called him Daddy Trapper. And there's just one scene, exactly, and there's like one scene where he is like almost completely naked, and he has like this like very shiny like jockstrap on, and we were like, whoa, what is this? I would like to play more.
Awesome. Okay, I'm sold.
That is amazing. I want everyone who is listening to this to go play Boyfriend Dungeon. It is a delight.
I never finished it, but I did enjoy what I played of it, for sure.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a dating sim where you are dating weapons, and then you take those weapons on dates in roguelike dungeons, and it's just a delight. Like the first like level that you go in is an abandoned mall, and so like you're like killing monsters, then you'll come across like the food court, and the weapon will be like, hey, do you want to stop and have food? And then you'll like have a dinner date in the middle of this dungeon. It's just awesome. I also just picked up, I was talking about this right before the pod, there's a Humble Bundle that just came out, and I picked it up. It's all dating sims, and there is one of them where you straight up date kaiju. and it's called Kaiju, the Kaiju dating sim. And I am very excited to get in there and date lovable kaiju. So I am super stoked on that.
I think that this sort of genre just lends itself well to kind of sillier kind of, because I think that a lot of straight, just like there are 6 girls that you can date and they have wacky personalities. It's just not as interesting as like dating, killers or pigeons or weapons like that.
Yep. Mel, what do you got?
Oh God. Have you guys ever heard of Monster Prom?
No?
It's
I think I have that. Yeah, I think I have played that.
Okay. Yeah, I like this one a lot. You're essentially like a monster that goes to high school and you try to date other monsters. And the dialogue is very funny. The things that kind of happen to you is very interesting. And the monsters are just wild and they do crazy things. So it's just really fun to see like all the different like aspects and like find all the different endings to Monster Prom. And
that's one that you can play multiplayer too, right? Like you have like simultaneous dating stuff going on.
Yeah, I haven't actually got to play with anybody for the multiplayer aspect, and I want to know like whether or not like you can try to date the same monster, or if it's like you have to pick separate monsters.
I did it a long time ago. I don't remember what I forget. I don't remember how it works.
Yeah,
because do you like choose your love interest at the start, or is there something who's kind of figure out as you go?
It's kind of interesting because like when I was playing single player, there's like a handful of questions that you would answer at the very beginning to define like your type or whatever. And then it would like assign you like a very specific monster that like your type would go after. And like the whole entire game kind of like pushes you to like date that particular monster. Gotcha. And most of the time I'm just like, I don't want to date this person. Go date somebody else. And then there's I Love You, Colonel Sanders. This game is definitely just a marketing ploy to get people to eat KFC. I think it was like during the time where like they were creating those KFC like
wasn't it like a Wendy's
console?
And the console, they had like a whole bunch of different very like wacky things, and this one was also one of them. It was like the dating sim. You could date Colonel Sanders, and the whole entire time it's like showing you like chicken, like how flaky and delicious it is, and it's on a bed of this beautiful mashed potatoes, and like Colonel Sanders is fucking hot, and you're like, why is Colonel Sanders, this old guy, just like so fucking cool and so amazing? But that game, the ending of that game just makes me so upset, because you would think it's a dating sim and it just leaves you hanging a little bit.
Can you not actually successfully romance Colonel Sanders, or what happens at the end?
I mean, you kind do you want? You guys haven't played it yet, so I don't know if
I don't care about spoilers. Go ahead.
You're fine.
Okay, you don't really get to like. You go on dates with Colonel Sanders, and you're like, man, this is going great. Like I'm over at your house, Colonel Sanders. Like it's time to get it on. And then he just like, no, we're friends.
Oh, okay.
I'm just like, no,
sort of actually
date you.
Did you try to look in his cabinet to figure out the 11 herbs and spices, and he just like spurned you? Is that what happened?
I don't think so. I think that he was just. I don't think they just let you date Colonel Sanders.
It's probably a marketing like Colonel Sanders is single canonically, so we can't have him dating the player.
But I mean, if you look at some of these like pictures like of this dating sim, like Colonel Sanders is hot.
You can
get it. Hot.
Didn't they do like a Lifetime movie or something where Colonel Sanders was played by Mario Lopez?
That sounds familiar. I think it was like a special or something, some kind of like half-hour special or something like that. But yeah, I think I does sound familiar.
Yeah,
Mario Lopez, really?
Yeah, Mario Lopez as a sexy Colonel Sanders in a Lifetime movie.
It's called A Recipe for Seduction.
Fucking KFC can get it too.
Mario Lopez becomes sexy Colonel Sanders in this Lifetime KFC original mini movie that is 100% real. I mean, Mario Lopez is pulling it off, though.
Well, yeah, he's Mario fucking Lopez. AC Slater's not going to be able to be a sexy Colonel Sanders.
Oh, he's got this beautiful mustache and like beard going on right now.
The Colonel Sanders mustache and beard, yeah. We've all seen it on the side of a chicken bucket. Oh man!
We need to get off the topic of Colonel Sanders, guys.
Sure. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the sexy Hamburglar reboot now, because for a while they had the Hamburglar was like played by a guy, and they found this really hot guy to play the Hamburglar, and it was. I don't think it lasted very long, but it was very funny.
Wait, really?
I think this is a real thing. Yeah. Sexy Hamburglar.
Sexy Hamburglar. I need to see this.
I just found an article that says the new Hamburglar is hot, and that's kind of a problem. It was from 2015. That's amazing.
Yep.
Oh my God. All right. Yeah, we got to move on.
Sure.
How have the perception of dating sims changed over the years, especially out of Japan, where the genre originated?
Excuse me.
So, to give a little background here, I think it's clear that dating sims have become more socially acceptable. Like back when I was in like high school, the people who were playing dating sims, it was like you're a weeb and you're like you know.
They really had a reputation.
Acceptable. Yeah, exactly. And it's like skeevy and creepy and like that sort of shit.
It kind of brings to mind those like people who have like anime body pillows, that kind of thing. Like, oh, this is my wife. This is my digital waifu I'm dating.
Yes, exactly. And so in my opinion, at least, I don't know if you guys agree with me, is that it's more socially acceptable now. And I think that's due to two things. I think one, there are more tongue-in-cheek dating sims that are out there. And so people recognize like, oh, you're not playing it because you're like horned up. You're playing it because it's funny to date a monster, or it's funny to date Colonel Sanders, or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel, you look like you had something you wanted to say.
It kind of goes two ways, because we really haven't discussed a lot on the topics of like the hardcore sexual dating sims that are out there. Like we have been really primarily focused on like the
more deconstructed, like well-written ones. And there are a lot of like there are a lot of games that they're just straight up porn ultimately. Like they're not well-written. They're just here so you can perform some actions and then earn the right to see some titties. Like that's kind of how some of them work for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who it was, but somebody in the Discord was playing one of those, and it was basically Galaga, but it was like just Galaga on top of like a scrolling naked woman. And the further you got in the level, the more of the woman you saw, right? So there's a bunch of porn games out there, and I think that those still have the stigma associated with them.
Which is not to say that which is definitely not to say that you can't have a like well-written, well-done porn game, but because there are a lot of people just looking to capitalize on just sex, like you're going to get a lot of them that are not very good quality.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. Like if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But on the flip side of it, I also think that romance being involved in some of these like really high quality, really well received, really critically acclaimed games has also done a lot to open people's eyes to the fact that this is a legitimate genre that people actually might want to play, right? The writing can be good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys have thoughts on this outside of what we've already said?
Yeah, I think just kind of as it's gotten more exposure, and I think you're right. The sort of like deconstructed kind of like more tongue-in-cheek dating sims have kind of given it a little more of a classy reputation, and also just like the fact, even if they're not tongue-in-cheek, like there was one that I remember hearing about. I forget what it's called now, but basically it's that it was a dating sim, but all of the love interests had some sort of disability. And from what I understand, it was actually like really well received by the disabled community. Like it actually like dealt with these issues in like a really sensitive way, which I thought was really cool
really
to hear. Yeah. I can't really confirm that myself because having not played it, but I think there is like the medium has kind of gotten more elevated, or at least like in the popular eye has become more respectable as the years have gone by.
Yeah. I also think too, like as a society, we're a lot more progressive in the way that we think. So when people say dating, like dating sims, and if they are looking at like, you know, like more like pornographic type, you know, dating sims, we're kind of like, all right, cool.
Mhm.
Like that's great. And then we just kind of like move on. Whereas I think that like if we were to look back like 10 years ago, people talking about dating sims, like it definitely was way more, what's the word I'm looking for? Frowned upon for people to be doing that, because that's like the thought and like the mindset that a lot of us were in, like that, like it wasn't socially acceptable to be into your own sexuality, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think we really kind of came out as a society to be more accepting of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's true. I have a thought that I just realized, like, I wonder if back in the day when these were like frowned upon, if there's like some really, really good dating sim that we all missed out on because we were just like not open to it, you know?
Yeah, probably.
And then the flip side of that is I wonder how much shows like The Bachelor and Bachelorette and that sort of thing have made it more acceptable in the public eye for dating sims to exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is one person going on a bunch of different dates and trying to pick the one that they want to date. And, you know, like it's entirely possible that has had some sort of beneficial, I don't want to say like directly, but indirect benefit to the dating sim genre.
I know that definitely. So there was a show that came out when I was much younger. I think it was called How to Marry a Multi-Millionaire. And I don't think it lasted very long, but I remember thinking at the time, like someone's going to get married to someone from a reality show. Like what that was kind of unheard of. And now it's like happens. It's like every year there's a new Bachelor season. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's kind of, we just kind of gotten a little more desensitized to it to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to throw out one more thing about dating sims and how it changed over the years. I feel like a lot of dating sims now, it's not just like you're a guy trying to date girls. It's now that you are a player and you have your choice of dating either somebody who is male, female, or like that person could be like a, you know, bi or something like that. So it really allows the player to really explore like themselves as through these games, because I feel like, you know, if you weren't able to express yourself in society about like what your sexuality is, like these dating sims gives you the opportunity to do that. And I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the best dating sims are ones that really are not just like presenting this character as like a prize for you to win by completing a quiz. Like it's more about like uncovering their story and kind of, you know, And I think that's totally right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you point that out because like I'm a cishet dude and most of the dating sims that I've enjoyed have been games where I'm like, Dream Daddy was awesome. The writing was amazing, right?
Yeah.
The relationship between you as a dad and your daughter was really cool and inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to be outside of whatever you're comfortable with to enjoy those stories, right? So you can be a gay dude and enjoy a female like relationship. You can be whatever you want to be and still enjoy the writing because the writing has gotten so good, right? And to Jamie's point earlier, like that's what the gameplay here is. And if you're just willing to like have an open mind and enjoy some awesome writing, you're going to love whatever dating sim you end up playing now, as long as the writing is good. Right?
Yeah.
It might be terrible. It might be like, oh, click button, see boobs. But like outside of that, you're probably going to enjoy it. And I think that that's awesome.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, dating sims often have similar character archetypes. We've talked about some of these a little bit throughout, but what are some of these that are more common? How do we feel that this compares or contrasts to real life dating experience? What do you got for me?
I think that, well, we mentioned Doki Doki Literature Club, and I think that that's one game that kind of like exemplifies a lot of these sort of like, especially when you're talking about, you know, a male character dating one of several female characters. There's, you know, like there's like the best friend who's and then there's like the more like standoffish kind of silent character, and then I guess and then I guess there's the like small, angry character. But I love those. They're just sort of anime archetypes in general, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The cute one who's like upset that she's cute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she has to be like petite too. It's never like she's cute and she's tall and voluptuous. It's always like just tiny, like tiny and cute, like your fun size.
Well, and in Doki Doki Literature Club, I think they actually allude to that character is actually the reason she's so small is because she's been like malnourished because her parents are abusive. Like there's some that can be some dark places, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. God, I love
it
Doki
does. For those of you who haven't played it, if you're listening, I want you to know it's amazing. It's free on Steam, and it is a horror game. Like I didn't know that going in.
It's better that you don't know anything going into that game.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a wild experience.
Yeah.
To answer this question from my end, I have certainly known a few hidden vampires in my day, right? Like the goth girlfriend who's like, off, like antisocial on purpose, and like that sort of thing. Like that's an archetype I think most people have seen. The himbo is based on some very real humans I know.
What's a himbo?
It's like a
You've never heard of term? Yeah,
no, I've never heard of himbo.
Really?
Like
well, so
him.
Well, himbo is it's interesting because a himbo is not just a gender swap bimbo. Bimbo has a very negative connotation. Like they're just some dumb bimbo. Himbo is specifically someone who is dumb, but also extremely respectful of women. If that makes sense. Like a extremely wholesome, but not very smart, handsome man is kind of what it
it's like a Labrador, but a guy. Like a human golden retriever. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, because I could always kind of like picture that being like associated with like some sort of like big buff dude. Like I don't know why, but like that kind of
is. It usually is.
Like nobody wants to date like the big buff guy that's a bro. Like that's just like not something that you would want to do. Like I feel like that kind of falls into that archetype.
Yeah. Well, it's specifically the big buff bro who's also like incredibly nice, but not very smart. Yeah. That's kind of the archetype.
Okay.
That's the himbo. Okay. What's a good example of a himbo in a dating sim? I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's one out there.
There was one in Craig in Dream Daddy.
Oh yeah, like Dream Daddy. Yeah, he's like a big bro. He's like a gym bro, but also like incredibly like good father and things like that.
His twin girls to death, like that sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
just like a good buff, like idiot.
Yeah,
sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. I have friends who are just like, yeah, that's a himbo, right?
Or in Monster Prom, like the werewolf guy with the varsity jacket. That's a pretty good example. I forget his name, but yeah, that's a pretty good example of that too.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny, like looking at the various prospects in Dream Daddy, I think I've been friends with every one of them, right? Like
Your life?
Yeah, like in my life, like the person who has a dark past and sometimes turns to the bottle. Like, yeah, I've had that, right? Mm-hmm. Like closeted Christian, like, yep, I went to an all guys Catholic school. I definitely had friends who were that. Like every one of those characters is like, yeah, I've known that person.
Sure. What about like? There's also like an archetype like in a lot of these dating sims that are like this very nerdy, super shy guy. It's not like they're silent characters, but they're just
very quiet, mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like sensitive at the same time.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Tech billionaire. It's fine.
Yeah. But like also like super humble.
Yeah, I don't know if we haven't brought this up yet, but Stardew Valley has a pretty strong, in that game you basically there's the scenes are pretty minimal, but you know, you kind of unlock their stories you go. And there's like the poet who lives by the beach is kind of the character you're talking about a little bit. Yeah.
The only reason why is because I've been playing like 53 hours of Stardew Valley in like the past like 3 weeks. So, but yeah, like awesome. I feel like those are very stereotypical, like archetypes of characters in dating sims, and
yeah, for sure.
I feel like sometimes it's not necessarily like they are similar to like real life people and like their personalities, but it's like more exaggerated. Like that's kind of like their whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you have only so much time to tell a story, you kind of just be like, this is the bro, this is the nerd, this is kind of
sure.
For the purpose of the story, that's what they are.
Yep. And it's funny because like we talked about earlier, the better ones, it's like that's what they start as. And then you uncover like more parts of their personality and they start to be more fleshed out, but they start as a character archetype. And I think it's an interesting trope that a lot of dating sims sometimes fall back on.
Yeah. For sure.
Cool. All right. So we're nearing the end of the episode, which means we all know what time it is. It's time for a sponsored question. This one is sponsored by Clearance Candy. That's right. If you're listening to this the week that it comes out, then it was just Valentine's Day, might actually be Valentine's Day. And so this will be your last chance to get Clearance Candy until Halloween. So stock up now. Go to your Walgreens, your Rite Aids, your Farmer Jack's, if those exist near you, and get you some Clearance Candy. All right, so here's the question sponsored by Clearance Candy. If you were suddenly transported into a dating sim as the main character, who or what would you be courting, and how would it work out?
So as a gay man, obviously I would be dating character actresses. So we would have, we would have Jane Lynch and Jennifer Coolidge, really all the Christopher Guest movie actresses. And then like Joan Cusack, Martha. This is kind of a funny story. Before I was out, when I was in college, we played a game of Truth or Dare, and someone I knew who kind of like figured out what was going on with me a little bit was like, what's your like embarrassing celebrity crush? And I was like, Joan Cusack. And he was like, okay. So yeah, that's how it would go. And it would just end with us all being friends and hanging out together.
Yeah, I love it. I also love that you didn't say this name, but you put Allison Janney on your list.
Oh yeah,
what
of course, Allison Janney.
She's amazing.
Drop Dead Gorgeous. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know actresses' names, so I'm literally copying, pasting to see them in Google. I'm like, oh, okay, I know who this person is.
I know Jennifer Coolidge has had kind of her moment in the sun lately, so I'm sure that's the one that people will recognize.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would love to be in a dating sim where like I am trying to find the perfect doggo that will be in my life forever, where I have to like figure out what their favorite snacks are. Like I have to go and like figure out what tricks they learn, or and like what's their favorite like toy that they have to like, play with. Like, is it the Frisbee? Is it the football? Is it like the squeaky toy? And then like, just try to get to know all the dogs because I want to know their backstory. Like, why are they a dog with no home? Explain this to me.
I love it. You know how in dating sims, there's always that like final choice you have to make where it's like, are you going to be with this person for sure? Or are you going to move to like a different person or whatever? I love the idea of in your dating sim for dogs, that being, if you find the spot that makes their leg go when you scratch them, I
love that. That's great. We need to make this a game.
Game developers and public people who make games, come to us. We have ideas. I want to play a game. My backlog of games has gotten out of hand recently, and so I would like to play a game where I am dating games and picking which games I want to play and spending my time with. And I absolutely love the idea of seeing the different personalities of the games that I'm trying to play. And like which archetypes they fill. So like we talked about the cute and bouncy character, like that's obviously Fortnite, which is insane that I'm playing Fortnite, but I am. And then you've got like the cosplayer nerdy girl, and that's Marvel Snap. And then like the penis torture dominatrix expert who's like Elden Ring. Yeah. And so,
I would love to see these personifications of these games. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So
I'm an artist for that.
we need to find game developers, artists, game producers. We got a writer, and then let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would play all 3 of these games. I would play every one of these games. I love the idea of all of the character actresses coming to a party that you're hosting.
Same.
Like this is just great. I love all of them. All right. Anybody got anything anything else that they need to say about dating games?
I do want to say one thing about Sexy Hamburglar. Like when you guys were talking about whatever question, I was looking
Let's go back to Sexy Hamburger for a second.
I forgot we were like trying to answer a question for a second, and I was just like staring at pictures of him. Not sorry.
I think they missed out by ending that marketing campaign.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my God.
I'd be looking at those commercials all day.
It's amazing because if you Google Hamburglar sexy, the first thing is like a sexy women's costume for Hamburglar. And then it's like the sexy hamburger from 2015. And then it's just like a regular cartoon image of the Hamburglar. It's like
is this not sexy? When did this become hotter than this?
Like, Google is like, I don't know what sexy is. Here's everything.
Oh my God.
Love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, do yourself a favor and Google sexy Hamburglar. Yeah. All right. Outside of that, tell the people where you can be found.
Yeah. So if you want to follow, I'm on Twitter for as long as Twitter's still around, you guys. I'm on Twitter at Rantasmo, RANTASMO. You can also find me on YouTube. I do a YouTube series called Needs More Gay, where I talk about LGBT media and culture. That's also, you can find that by searching Rantasmo. And if you want to play my sort of dating sim-esque visual novel game, you can find that on the platform Storyloom. And once you've made an account there, just search for How to Marry a Monster.
That is amazing.
That is,
and he also is a.
And of course, I'm on Little Dicey. We can watch us play D&D. Yeah, of course, every Wednesday at I believe it's at 7 p.m. And our Twitch channel's name is a Little Dice.
Yes. Fantastic. You need to go see them. They are great. It's super entertaining.
It's the best D&D group I've ever been a part of.
But I love just like listening in and just seeing everybody act their characters. What type of character are you playing right now?
So right now we're doing sort of a little mini series. I'm playing a lizard folk paladin who is is very interested in human emotions and kind of emulating them, and it's a real fun character.
Love it. Yeah,
it
please,
is a real
everybody
fun
go
character.
Everybody go check it out. I am Melephant. You can find me on the Discord, Twitter, and Twitch as Melephant.
And I am a 20-sided ninja. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Hive, Mastodon. If you see in a 20-sided ninja, odds are real strong that it's me. Yeah. So one other question. Imagine that there were a dating sim and you had to date Dan. What would the goal be? Fuck you, Dan.
Oh my God.
Hey, we got there. All right, everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
And that, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is love. Kind of makes you cry, doesn't it?